Hi, and welcome to the Becoming Trauma-Informed podcast, where we help you understand how your past painful experiences are affecting your current reality and how you can shift those so you can create your desired future. I'm Dr. Lee, and both myself and our team at the Institute for Trauma and Psychological Safety are excited to support you on your journey. We talk about all the things on this podcast. No topic gets left uncovered. So, extending a content warning to you before we get started. If you notice yourself getting activated while listening, invitation to take care of yourself and to pause, skip ahead a bit, or just check out another episode. Let's dive in. Hi, friends. Welcome to this week's episode. If you can tell, there's a little bit of difference. I don't know, our podcast editor, Gina Winks, is amazing, but if you can tell there's a little bit of difference in sound, that's because I am in Arizona for a work trip and forgot my mic. So I'm tucked in this super teeny tiny corner of the hotel room, trying to block out sounds and, example of done not perfect. So if you need that example for yourself to get something done that you need to get done today or this week, just remember, done not perfect. That's what matters. So I was thinking about podcast topics for this week. I mulled over a few in my head, and the one thing that has been coming up a lot in the coaching that I've been doing, in the questions I've been getting asked, is around power and leadership and self-trust. And so I've decided I actually want to break this into 3 separate episodes. So today we're going to talk about psychological safety and trust. And then the next 2 weeks, we're going to talk about power and leadership, which I'm so excited about. When I say psychological safety, right? Psychological safety obviously is important to me. If you have read the name of our very long organization, the Institute for Trauma and Psychological Safety, by the way, that does not fit on a credit card, doesn't fit in the mail, doesn't fit on a lot of things. If you have seen the back half of our name, that is important to us because we put it in our name, and we put it in our name for a reason. And one of the questions I get a lot is okay, but what is psychological safety? And in fact, a lot of people who think that trauma-informed care and trying to create safer spaces is problematic oftentimes are like, psychological safety, really? First, we had to worry about physical safety, and now I have to worry about if I'm creating a safe space for you to feel whatever feelings are coming up. And I want to honor that. I want to honor the fact that for a lot of people that don't understand what true psychological safety is, that kind of seems like maybe we're coddling people, maybe we're going too far in creating safer spaces. And so I was like, you know what? I don't want to argue with anybody on the internet. Let me just talk about this, because I think that understanding what this really means sheds a lot of light and answers a lot of the questions and negates a lot of the arguments. So psychological safety, definition. This is a term that was coined back in the 1990s by a man, Dr. Kahn, and he was looking at work environments. And he said, okay, what makes a work environment psychologically safe? And he said that people experience psychological safety when they feel like they can take risks and show up as their whole selves and not lose acceptance, safety, belonging, right? Without risk of negative consequence for just being themselves or trying something new. And when you extend that out to beyond the workplace, right? Psychological safety is, can I be me? Can I be me? And can you accept me as me and not withdraw your love or your safety or your belonging when I show up as authentic me? Now, there's some caveats to this, right? Because we also get to remember that everybody gets to have boundaries. And me showing up as authentically me, if I'm doing things that are hurtful or harmful to other people, either physically or psychologically, then I don't believe that that is something that should be tolerated. I think it doesn't make sense to tolerate when people are saying, well, I'm just being me, and if you don't like it, right? Okay, are you being you, or is your nervous system triggered and you're actually showing up in threat response? And this is a mask. This is a costume you're putting on. This is your nervous system puffing you up and making you look bigger or stronger so that this other person backs down. Is that really you? Is that the you underneath of the threat response? Or is that you acting? Is that you putting on airs to appear to be something that actually you really aren't? So there's definitely some nuance in this conversation. The point is, though, is that if you are showing up in a calm, relaxed body or in a vulnerable way, that people will see you and meet you and hold space for you in that way. That is true psychological safety. What a lot of people don't know is that in order to feel psychologically safe in a place with another person, just really within ourselves, and that's the place that I'm always encouraging other people to start, is like, if you're not psychologically safe with yourself, then you're probably not going to feel psychologically safe anywhere else. And what I mean by that is if when you make a mistake or you take a risk, if you are unkind to yourself, if you remove compassion and you are cruel or emotionally harmful toward yourself, then like you're not being psychologically safe toward yourself. So that is really, I think, a place to start. And back to the trust piece, we cannot feel psychologically safe in a space without trust. And when a lot of people hear the word trust, we all kind of have an idea of what trust means. Trust actually has 4 components to it that I did not know this. Before I went into the trauma-informed space, I had no idea like what really helped us be able to trust other people or to trust ourselves or to trust ourselves. So trust has 4 components to it. And when we think about trust, we can think about trust in 2 different directions, the same way we can think about psychological safety. We can think about the external environment. Does the external environment feel psychologically safe? Do I trust the humans in this external environment? And do I trust myself? Do I have psychological safety with myself internally, right? Is the voice in my head or the thoughts in my head, the feelings in my body, do those feel safe? And do I feel safe trusting myself? Now, I'm going to say a thing. Most of the humans that come into our space, there is at least one of the 4 areas of trust that they really do not feel is strong within themselves. So I'm going to go through these 4 areas, and I want to encourage you to listen and think about, okay, in each of these categories, do I trust myself? And in each of these categories, am I willing to trust other people, right? And we don't want to blindly trust. We don't want to just be like, oh yeah, this person's going to be this. We do get to have positive intent about other humans. And it is important for us to kind of gauge, okay, is this somebody that I'm going to start giving more and more and more trust to? So let's get into it. When we look at the 4 areas of trust, they're broken down into 2 sections. So we have 2 cognitive areas of trust and we have 2 affective areas of trust. As I go through these 2, you're probably going to realize like, yeah, okay. I value one of these more than the other. And that's cool. And just a reminder, we need both. We really need both to feel truly psychologically safe. So let's start with cognitive trust. And cognitive trust is going to be more like rational trust, mental trust. Like I trust that this person has these 2 things. And the 2 things are that they are capable and that they are consistent. So capability and consistency are the 2 pieces of cognitive trust. Now, capability is, do I trust that this person can do what they're saying they're going to do? Right? Can I trust that this person can do what they say they're going to do and that they can do it well? And a great example of this is, in the nursing field, I would go in to do procedures or go in to perform some sort of task with a patient. And one of the questions you get asked most often is, how many times have you done this? And that question is getting at, can I trust your capability? People ask that because they want to know if this is the first time you're doing something or the 700th time you're doing something. They want to know, how comfortable are you? How capable are you at this? That's really important to people, right? So capability. The second piece is consistency. And consistency is, can I rely on you? When you say you're going to do something, does it happen? Or when you say you're not going to do something, does it not happen? Consistency is not about time as much as it is about reliability. Look at our podcast, for example, right? Our podcast has come out every week during our scheduled times on Tuesdays. Last week it came out on Wednesday, and we have 75 episodes. So if y'all were like, oh my gosh, where's the podcast, right? If you had that experience, or if you were like, oh, this came out on Wednesday instead of Tuesday, that's so weird. That's because we've been incredibly consistent with the date that it comes out. And actually, I'm just remembering now, we skipped a week. We skipped a week. So one was a day late, and then we skipped a week because life just got really hectic. And here's the thing is, I could say, oh my gosh, I broke my consistency. I'm so inconsistent. Like, oh, people aren't going to trust me. No, people are going to trust. People are going to trust. First of all, how much does consistency matter here? Like, does it cause you a significant problem for our podcast to come out a day late, right? So part of this is this person consistent where it really matters? And so does consistency matter as much around the date that a podcast comes out, or if we skip a week versus, oh, I have coaching calls with you every single week and I am always messaging you an hour beforehand to cancel or to shift or to do things like that. It doesn't even matter. We've had somebody ask this question of, well, what if I'm consistently late? Like, can people trust me? And I'm like, well, that actually goes to effective trust. So let's talk about that next. Because here's the thing. If you are consistently late and people know that and you've boundaried that and you say, hey, yeah, I know that our meetings are supposed to start at 10 and I typically am going to be on 5 to 10 minutes late because I've got this or that going on, right? If your other person doesn't care and you are consistently showing up for the call and you're also communicating around what's going on, people will still see you as consistent because what you are doing is consistently communicating around the schedule, around the plan, around the changes. So consistency really has to do with what did we both agree was going to happen and what parts of that matter most. So a lot of people miss this, and a lot of people think, they make a decision that they need to be super consistent and post every day, or they need to do something every single day. And it's like, okay, did you ask yourself if that's what works best for you? Does that actually work best for you? Could consistency for you be, I'm going to write 6 posts in a day, and then I'm going to put those up every now and then, or I'm going to post once a week, or I'm not going to show up on this social media platform at all, and I'm going to put my energy over here. So consistency really gets to be about reliability. One of the places that I've really noticed the way that I've increased consistency is actually by practicing more of ensuring that I'm only committing to things that I am capable of doing. So that cognitive piece, and that I am intentionally focusing on these second pieces of trust, the effective trust. So let's go there now. Effective trust, Effective, by the way, effective, not effective. Effective trust is emotional trust. It is, do I feel safe with this person, right? From a emotions perspective. So the two pieces to effective trust are honesty and caring/compassion. So when we think about honesty, right? Again, externally, when we think about if we trust somebody, when they say yes to something, do they mean yes? When they say no to something, do they mean no? Do they mean what they say? And you can see how this connects to capability and consistency, because if I am consistently saying I'm capable of things I'm not, and it's causing me to miss deadlines, it's causing me to have miscommunications with coworkers, like that then affects my consistency. And all of a sudden I have 3 places where I have broken trust with somebody, right? So all of these kind of intertwine. Thinking about this from an internal perspective, how many of y'all tell yourselves things that you don't actually believe? Or how many of y'all try to convince yourself that you believe something that isn't true, right? How many of y'all are staying in relationships, staying in jobs, staying in locations, staying connected to people that you're like, man, this actually really doesn't feel good for me. This isn't working. when we are not honest with ourselves, that becomes really problematic. Because how are you supposed to trust yourself if you lie to yourself? And if you lie to yourself about something small, you'll probably lie to yourself about something big. And I know that this is a moment that you might want to just like turn off the podcast and flip me off, and that's fine. I can hold that. This is a huge place. This is one of the biggest places that I see people really struggle to trust themselves, is because owning their yeses and their nos, owning their desires, owning their fears, owning all of those things, letting them be there. And by the way, this really has to do with also feeling your feelings, which ties in the fourth piece of trust. The fourth piece of trust is compassion and caring. And when we look at this externally, this is, does this person care about me when they make decisions? Does this person consider me? Does this person treat me with compassion when I make a mistake? Does this person see me as a human? Do they value me? Do they validate my experience and my feelings? Hear that part. Do they validate my experience and my feelings? Now, validation of an experience and feelings does not mean that you agree with them. It does not mean that you are saying that it's good that they just got really frustrated with you, or the actions they chose after their feelings are right. What it means is, I see you. I see you're having feelings. I see that this experience is hard for you, and I can hold that. I'm not running away, and I'm also not invalidating you and making you wrong. When you think about this internally, how many of y'all are really mean to yourselves? How many of y'all are really mean to yourselves? How many times do you call yourself stupid or tell yourself that you're not blank enough, smart, pretty, educated, degreed, licensed, whatever? Insert your most commonly used insult against yourself here, right? If I can't show myself compassion, then how can I trust myself? Think about from when you were a little kiddo, right? Or think about at a point in your life where you made a mistake or you did something and you really thought your psychological safety was at risk, and somebody was like, hey, yeah, that was a mistake. That sucked. We're definitely going to have to fix that. And also, like, you good? What happened? And not from a judgmental place, but from a curious place. Like, what happened? Do you have too much on your plate? Right? Is what we're asking of you beyond your capabilities? Did you not have the support that you needed? This example actually came up around honesty and compassion in a mom group I'm in this week. And we were chatting about little kiddos lying, right? And when we think about kiddos, they make mistakes. They break things. They do stuff. And a lot of times they lie to us. And the reason they lie to us is because they don't have psychological safety. They don't trust that other humans are going to meet them with compassion. And one of our kiddos used to lie a lot. I used to lie a lot as a kiddo. And a lot of times I did it because it was like, you know what? I can't tell the truth. If I tell the truth here, I am not going to be met with compassion. So being honest with this person doesn't feel safe because I know that they're not going to show up in a compassionate manner. And I really wasn't trying to hurt or harm anyone. I just made a mistake. I was impulsive. The ADHD kicked in. I was overstimulated. So I shared in this group, I said, you know, when I was younger and with one of our kiddos, they're impulsive and they were lying a lot. And what we started doing was taking a more compassionate approach and going, why are they lying? Not from a judgment perspective, but a curious perspective. And when we realized it was a twofold issue. One, they thought if there was even a chance that they could avoid the trouble, right? They thought they were going to get punished because they had gotten punished, because that was how we were parenting before we shifted our parenting to a more trauma-informed perspective. So they thought they were going to get in trouble, and they were really impulsive. They were impulsively lying. They were impulsively going, no, that's not it. So we figured out, how can we create compassion? How can we meet this kiddo with compassion to inspire their honesty? And so now we have a rule in our house. Everyone is allowed, when they get asked if they did something, to have a panic moment and impulsively lie, because that's what we do sometimes. Everyone is allowed to impulsively lie, and no one gets in trouble for that first lie, adults included. However, we all have a pretty good sense of when one of us is lying. And so if we sense that someone's not being fully truthful, we go, hey, I know that the impulse there might have been to protect yourself because you were worried that I wasn't going to be compassionate. I'm not going to promise that I'm not going to get mad, or I'm not going to have feelings about what has happened. What I can promise is that I'm not going to be mean to you. I might get mad. I'm not going to be mean. And this has eliminated 90% of the lying in our house because it gives people that second to be like, hey, I know the knee-jerk reaction was to not tell the truth there because you didn't feel safe, and reminder that you are, and reminder that we will figure out the natural consequences together. But like, my job here as your parent is not to punish you. My job here as your parent is to help you start trusting yourself more and to learn how you can trust other people, to give you a good example of what psychological safety looks like. So when you leave this house, you don't accept less than that. Your house and your parents and your family feels so psychologically safe that you do not accept less than that when you leave here. And that has been huge. And it's also helped heal me as well from an inner kiddo perspective. It's been really, really helpful. You can see, again, how all of these intertwine, how compassion can inspire honesty, and compassion can inspire consistency, and compassion can inspire capability. Because if you feel safe making a mistake, or you know that people are going to care about your feelings, you are more likely to try things that you wouldn't have tried before. You're more likely to give yourself a second chance and not just stop doing something that doesn't go right the first time, and practice consistency. You're so much more likely to do these things. So my invitation to you is twofold. One, is there one of these areas of self-trust that if you focused in on, like if every day or most days, right? Let's practice consistency. Most days you checked in and said, what do I want to do today? What can I do today that will help me feel like I can trust myself more from a capability perspective or consistency perspective? Is there something I can do today that hits all four? This is one of my favorite things to start doing is there something I can do today that hits all four areas of building self-trust? So that's the first part. The second part is really evaluating, am I choosing to be in places that aren't psychologically safe? And do I want to keep doing that? Because here's the thing, a lot of the places in the world are not psychologically safe, and a lot of places in the world are. Places that you probably haven't even seen. Like Art Institute is, as I think, as psychologically safe as it gets. We're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes. Every now and then we're going to say something because we thought it was the truth and then be like, actually, that's not the truth. That's shifted. Every now and then we're going to be inconsistent. Every now and then we're going to be like, oh yeah, we can't do that. We don't have that capability. Every now and then we're going to have feelings because we're humans and we have feelings, and we sometimes have trauma responses, threat responses. 99% of the time we're going to be compassionate. There might be a 1% time where I get snippy or somebody says something, and then we're going to come back and be like, yo, sorry, our bad. Putting yourself in spaces and places where you can feel safe and you can trust that people are going to show up in those four areas of trust is massive. And I want to just speak that to you, whoever's listening, because some of y'all might not believe that's a place that exists. And here's the part you need to hear. You start with you first. Because the more you do this within yourself, the more you are going to repel humans who really don't value psychological safety. And you are going to attract in humans and experiences and places that do prioritize that. It's internal work first. And I know that's so annoying, right? If you're in a relationship with somebody where you're like, oh yeah, I really only trust them in like 2 of these 4 areas. Okay, cool. Look at yourself around those 2 to 4 areas. Do they trust you? Do they feel safe with you? If not, start with you first. Start with you first. So that's part 1. The next 2 podcast episodes will be about leadership and power, and I'm so excited to talk to y'all about that. And if you are a human who really wants to peek behind the curtain at how I practice growing my trust within myself, how I lead myself. I personally, this is not associated with the Institute. I personally have an offer coming out called Thought Leader. It's $19 a month for 3 months. And this is going to be you getting to see me and like my journal, the inside of my head, my thoughts, as I am starting to build my trust around speaking more and sharing more content and going out into the world and saying, hey, I trust myself enough. I know I'm really capable with this, and I want to start doing more of this work. So if you are somebody who has been feeling called to like be a thought leader, be somebody who leads other humans and helps them think about their thinking and helps them see the world in a different way, and you want to do that on a bigger scale, like you want to speak from stages, you want to write a book, you want to have a podcast, you want to do these things, this group's for you. Again, I decided to just make it $19 a month and have it be simple because I think that a lot of people need this. And I trust myself enough to let you watch me and to have you ask questions and to have you be part of this journey with me. And also, I'm really excited to have y'all with me from an accountability standpoint. I know that I'm more consistent when I have people seeing what I'm doing. And that's really helpful for me. So I hope you decide to join if this feels like something that speaks to you, that calls to you. The link to join will be in the show notes. I'm going to start April 3rd. Even if you're hearing this May 3rd, it's cool. You can still join. Come on in and experience it with us. Like, it's all good. You can't be late in our world. There's always a way to join now. So I hope to see y'all in there, and I will see you next week for part 2 of this podcast series. Love y'all. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Invitation to head to our show notes to check out the offers and connections we mentioned, or you can just head straight over to institutefortrauma.com and hop in our email list so that you never miss any of the cool things that we're doing over at the Institute. Invitation to be well and to take care of yourself this week, and we'll see you next time.